hard, it's because I get tired. So you can never bury the beater, ever. Stop doing that if you do it and you want to ever do this. And you just got to make sure you're away from it. So like if I get tired, if I'm going too fast, for example, I mean, you'll also see that in my music, there's not all like super fast footwork on the kick. Like that's part of it as well. I mean, that's also like I knew aesthetically like that wasn't like what I was going for. You know, I want the big boomy kind of like drama, almost like a timpani, like kettle drum vibe. But yeah, it'll double trigger if like I get too tired or if I'm going too fast or something like that. That certainly happens. But you know, it's far less. It's really not as invasive as it is. You know, it could be. Did you have a question?
Yeah. So I missed the first little bit because I was eating quick. But the when I came in, you were talking a lot about the like what like a expressivity as a performer, or the human things versus the mechanical things versus the computer things. All these kind of things, you know. And just like really quick context, I remember like when I was in my undergrad, I heard somebody deliver a lecture once where they said like nothing could be more a part of your body, or nothing could be more expressive than the voice, which I kind of think is BS because I feel more expressive on the guitar, and I feel like that is an extension of my body kind of thing. And that's like you mentioned later, you said the violin is my instrument, it's my voice, it's my that kind of thing, right? And I've also gotten that pushback on like pedals, which I feel like are an extension on that, and people like, oh well, that's not really the instrument, that's an electroacoustic thing added to the instrument or something. Anyway, the question is that with all this considered, with your whole setup, what do you consider to be the body or the voice or the instrument? What do you consider to be separate? Do you consider like the electronic parts to be an extension of one part of the voice? Are they something separate? You know what I mean? Does that make sense?
I mean, my goal is that it's all part of the expressive instrument. Okay. So if it's not, then I think I would get kind of uncomfortable and I would probably stop doing that. For example, there are lots of times in the studio where I'm like, man, it'd be really dope to have a sound at that point. But if I can't find a way to play it gesturally, if I can't find a way to get the sound to begin with a clear gesture, it doesn't feel sincere to me as a performer. It will feel stupid. I'm literally like, even when I'm writing music, thinking about how it's going to go down in a show. My mental model is still me like 15 years old in the Lower East Side watching dudes like go at it. And like we used to make fun of Nine Inch Nails for playing with a backing track or whatever it was. Like my mental model is still like, I want to see someone up there with superpowers owning it. You know, I'm like I respect that you can create beautiful things in a studio, but that's not why I'm at a live show as a 16-year-old brain, which is the same brain I have today, or maybe even younger. So like I'm up there, I like my thing is like man on a high wire act. Everybody's got their own thing, but like part of the concurrency of what makes these shows work, why people who know nothing about music come up to me and like I have no idea what you were doing, but like it was compelling to me the whole time. Like it works with people. I play for non-musicos most of the time. And they're pretty drawn into the process of it without needing to know what's going on. And part of that is just there's this kind of like man on a high wire act. You know, I think that like the worst thing you can do to your music is to try to de-risk it. You know what I mean? Like all this shit could crash, and like I played at Carnegie Hall and used live radio. Like that was a big deal for me, and like I could have gone wrong. You know, and like but like if the wins for me are like way better. I want to be the person who takes the chance. You know what I mean? And this is just like my attitude, you know what I mean? But like it fuels me while I'm alone at 2 a.m. writing music. You know, it keeps me down in the studio. So everything is kind of like, how will I be able to? So to go back to your question, it all has to feel like part of the instrument to me, or else, you know, I'm writing for a different project maybe or something. You know, I've done other projects where there's other kind of like ancillary like interstitial materials and things like that. But like during this solo event, it's fun because it's supposed to be about me. The way I think of it, just sum it up, is like everybody's out there trying to make the thing. I'm trying to be the thing. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Cool.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
So we'll maybe take 5, 6, 7 minutes. I'm going to move these front chairs around for the short panel discussion, and then
When I told
okay, just mute the channel.
I love
Wait, hyperlucidate hands. Right. Yeah, so we'll move around these chairs for that, and then start that in 5 minutes, so everyone can get some water, go to the bathroom, whatever you want to do. Yeah, why not?
Yeah, but we got it back up. So
Oh,
we're
okay.
good.
Oh, I
Pick up
was
cups.
just gonna show like my April file for the backup track for one of them.
So, Carol, are you going to chat with us and play?
No, you should be able to.
If you want to, you should.
Yeah.
Okay, good.
Yeah.
Okay, because I thought I remembered that you were going to play, and I looked at the thing and saw that you were going to chat to me. I was like, yeah, okay, great. I'm just checking. Yeah.
Yeah.
Sweet.
Is the chat happening
It just
first?
took us a couple
Yeah.
minutes.
Okay, great. It's gonna be like super short, and
It was
like,
right at the very
I know
end.
it's mostly just like us hanging, but I think it's like it's good to still go through it. And people are watching. You know, there's some, you know.
I didn't even know about that.
Oh yeah, it's live stream too.
That's great, man. Thanks for that.
Thank you. Andrew, can I help you move stuff or anyone?
You didn't. Oh,
It's
you
like-
got your
just
stuff
like-
done? Yeah, I just gotta like make a little semicircle with some chairs. If you wanna grab a chair, you can. Actually, you know what? I'm gonna plug the mic in.
How many are we doing?
Fourth?
Yeah. Let me see. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I think maybe like 6 even. 6 or 7. Basically this whole front row. Basically just no more chairs. Basically everyone stands. And we're gonna do a punch bowl. Yeah.
That was really excellent.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Is everything in frame for you?
Thanks so much.
I think so. I'm gonna triple check the number on the phone, but I think
Yeah, if you can feel, yeah, it
Who's
feels
this
everything
here?
a little bit.
That's what we need.
Fantastic.
How did you get involved originally with the organization?
With this organization or with Intersection?
Well, I guess are you related to involved in the Canadian Youth Center, or I know you're involved in
My ex-husband used to work here as a auto archivist. We would get, we would get mail for cassettes and stuff, and so we would digitize.
yeah. Well, we were, you know, so funny. We were talking about that earlier. We were talking about like how great the pitch shifting stuff sounds and how it like
And he got
sounds so organic and everything.
to
The nearest tone. Yeah, the
There, you can, yeah. I didn't know you could do it that early. I know you can do it now, but
I'm sure you can get something this time, but it's definitely a session.
no, I mean early as in like early versions of the software.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, like I knew like the harmonizers are super sophisticated and whatever now.
Yeah.
But I looked at the interface and was like, that's like an older OG version of something.
It's,
You could get something
yeah, it's nice for everybody.
I think if you use like
So
multiple blocks, you could get something.
when I got my video camera,
Yeah.
and that got around and people started asking me even without him.
Basically, that's
One more. Let's put it on this side.
on this side.
Well, that side, because I feel like we might be getting out of.
Yeah, out of the light. I'll go on the. I'll go on the darker end.
You want to like push?
No, I'm gonna
It's
go
so
on
long
that.
ago
That's
now,
good.
I kind of forget how it happened, but it was something
Good
like
story.
that. Yeah, and it's been a long time, you know, obviously, every year is a different crowd.
Yes.
Different people, different positions, and,
Yeah.
you know, it's always, an ear-opening experience, as it were.
Well, I was happy I was
Mind
able to.
expanding and
Yeah.
all of that.
We're lucky to be able to do it on one tour. We do with the route and routing this out. It's very sensitive.
Were you at the
So I'm,
event yesterday or?
I'm gonna
just was that
send my ex a copy
Okay.
of this.
Please do.
I'm pretty sure he'd be very
Yeah.
Yeah, right. Some blades,
I
yeah.
find their style.
Yeah, actually, I moved here.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I moved here to.
Oh,
I think we're Facebook friends. Yeah, thanks, there's. Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, also,
You can comment about it.
concepts or to get the word.
I grew up in Hamilton.
I really enjoyed it for one.
Yeah. It was just light.
I honestly am not.
More look literature. I've been doing more like
basically send
no,
shows.
I mean, a lot of
5 to 10 short videos.
Well,
But
see,
I'm-
I'm in Toronto. Next time I'm through, I hope we'll bump into each other again.
What's that?
Yeah.
And always the,
In Montreal?
intersection.
Yeah.
It's quite fun to drive in Moroccans there.
Okay.
Yeah, but there you go.
Fantastic. I'll see you next time.
And you'll see some
Here, like, I feel like nobody wants to play like no one knows who you're. I just got it,
and I happen to know
yeah, that feels nice. Like I don't feel like I'm outside.
deleting things out of the camera.
Good. Well, I just found out the place.
Yeah, since day one, since literally. Yeah, since my first day, I was like, yeah, why not?
I didn't know what to expect.
Cheers.
So where are
You are, is that?
We're actually very close.
Oh, it is.
Yeah.
I haven't
Very few friends that live like right around here as well.
He does like.
I don't think I can live outside of Toronto, honestly.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, I love it too much. Like I feel like I'm connected, and I love Custom. You know, it's a very big city.
Yeah.
There's always something happening, so I like the fact that downtown has this vibe. So yeah.
There's a lot to do.
Yeah. There's always something, just passing by after work, like I can find things, like I can just stop by, have some interesting food, listen to some music, and
That's the thing I've been really missing in the whole.
Right.
Just like picking up the street food, like that's really good. Yeah.
I know,
Yeah.
right?
Every time I'm here, I always try and get like banh mi and patties, and you know.
Yeah.
It's good. Yeah.
I mean, if you refresh, you're probably not even updates.
Well, sweet. I'm glad to hear that you're here now.
Yeah.
That's
Where
really
was
lovely.
that?
Yeah, lovely to meet you too.
Yeah. What should I set my output to in Ableton then?
Is that where you're playing in? Oh, you set it to be the
The headphones?
yeah, the headphones. Yeah.
Are we doing? Are we doing panel things?
What's that?
Are we doing a panel?
Yeah.
Okay, sweet. Am I a part of that?
Yeah.
Okay, great. Amazing.
I have you down for it.
Yeah, great.
You asked me, so as long
Okay,
as
sweet.
you're- yeah.
Sure, I wasn't sure if it was more the performance or the panel.
No, it's okay. You should do both. Cat's on both, and I have you down for both. So as long as you're up for it.
Amazing.
Upstairs is locked. Really? What's going on?
Upstairs is locked, the bathrooms are not accessible.
Yeah, it's weird.
Is the sound streams on the third floor now?
I thought they were. But recently I saw on Facebook this CMC advertising that third floor was available. So
Oh.
last I heard from John Gray was the same.
Yeah.
What's that? No, it doesn't matter. It's gonna be very chill, especially given the time frame and the whole thing. It's gonna be very chill. I'm just gonna ask you a couple of general questions, get people to talk about it, and then we'll probably be like half hour or something like that. I love this shirt.
I know, it's cute.
I should have worn one of my photos there.
I can literally borrow the truck.
Oh, sick. Okay.
That's a good job.
That's what reminds me of the frog.
All about how
Although this is not the Moroccan pattern, like the Moroccan patterns have more like emphasis on the detailing of the pattern and whatnot.
Cool.
Oh, so you played yesterday? I heard your set from the other side.
Oh, yeah.
Couldn't hear it.
I saw him on collaboration with Blake and Seagulls. That was fun.
First couple times I heard the gong hit the mic, I thought that was on purpose.
Oh,
I thought it was some sort of like boom sound or something. I was like, oh, that's cool. Like a nice little like check-in like boom or whatever amongst like static sounds. And then when I saw you do it once in your face, I was like, oh wait, that's actually
Driving down was like on the side. I was like,
yeah, I saw it. Yeah.
so
Like, oh no. I think they're fine. I don't think that's the worst thing that's happened to one of their mics.
it's one of those hard
I do not supposed to wear that.
Life
Yeah.
saving.
Oh, no
So
problem.
this is very specific, like, yeah.
You're like, who can I
I
rob?
must have sticks on mine. And actually, I only went with just 2 gowns. Usually,
Well, it's like,
yeah. Yeah, so there you go, yeah.
Oh, yeah. Yeah,
Yeah.
Okay, cool. I didn't really.
Yeah.
I was aware that someone was there talking, but I was. No worries, yeah. Cool. Yeah, I've been going without.
Right? I'll probably ask some nice questions. But I just wanted to listen.
Oh, yeah? Yeah. Yeah, I've always done it there.
Yes.
It's always bad.
Who am I?
Download.
From the cloud.
Yes.
I had to delete for storage. Now redownload.
Like with
That's my picture of
threads, like
Would you
it's
put it
threaded all
years ago?
like embroidery, like it's not like I have that. Like yeah,
Cool.
I
Was Sarah
didn't have,
playing?
like, I
Hey,
have
Manny.
that
No.
so yeah, like I didn't have it for this. I wanted it for
Does
this.
it say sure, like
Yeah,
presentation
so
part
for
of
me,
stuff?
like
Yeah,
Are you part of the annual
dance
experience of
and
recorded music or just?
Yeah, we're We'll get there. We took that word out of like.
Okay. What's another one? What else am I here?
I was like, came back and
You were actually on mute.
and then in the middle of
Track
something,
number
I was
one,
like,
yeah.
oh, where am I? Oh, right here. And like, my brain.
Well, you're the best.
Yeah. Actually, bump. Maybe like maybe bump the game just a bit. Yeah, check. There we go. Yeah. Nice and cool.
Yeah, lots of people are just like, yeah, it's so
No, that's
But I like the microphone because it means that I can pass.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's the electronic.
So tell me about what I was talking about is how to in the water.
I need to like send Esther a message about that. She kept like doing like unhinged banter, and I was just like, I don't know how to respond to this. I'm so like,
she's really good.
You're
she likes these like accents.
Yeah, she's like, thank you. And we get there, she's like, I want to break the crowd.
Oh yeah, I built a. I'll show you. It's like a football.
Hello?
Yeah.
I'm building football fields, and so I built a.
I was
football
dying. I was
field.
like, oh my god.
So it turns into an overtone.
They kind of look like a
Yeah,
It's like what a recorder
sorry,
or
Esther,
a
I love this
tinderboard
place.
uses.
No, I love this right now. I'm so curious.
Yeah,
She's like, I can
channeling
imagine.
It doesn't have a read?
No.
Yeah.
But it's nice because you can.
All right.
overlap
Ooh.
the saxophone.
Okay.
But-
Now we really go for it. We all ready to go?
Woo!
Woo! Ready?
It's like an onslaught of Toronto's new music.
Everyone to the front. Open up the pit. Open this place. All right. Okay, we all good? Sure?
Yes.
Okay. All right, so we're just going to do a very short panel discussion, and I think mostly I thought to do this because I think it was mostly inspired by Adam and Colin having sound installations as a part of yesterday, and then I thought, actually, you know, like a lot of people are presenting a lot of work with a really unique and interesting like artistic practice that's involved with this, so I was like, maybe it actually would be helpful even just between even us, like just to chat more about it, because I know like a lot of people, I mean, Christopher's talk was amazing because I know everybody had all these questions after his performance, so now we can also just like chat as like artists and stuff, you know. So the first, I do have a little queue and only a couple questions, and we're gonna go really quick, but the first thing I'm gonna do, I'm gonna pass the mic around. I'm just gonna say like, in literally like 2 sentences, say like who you are and what you do or what you care about or something. I feel like I'm back teaching summer camp for kids. Tell me your favorite animal. And here you go. Okay, so everybody knows who I am. So here you go.
Alright. I'm Adam Mirza. I'm a composer, sound artist. Like biking around Toronto. It's a beautiful city. Visiting from Atlanta, and I had one of the sound installations yesterday. And anything else I can say? I like going into situations that are unfamiliar and trying to find my way out of them.
My name is Michael Blabo. I'm a electroacoustic music composer and performer, and a scholar and a teacher, and a software developer as well, and a concert producer. And I run a really cool series called Exit Points in Toronto, and yeah, I really like playing with other people.
I'm Naomi Carol Butler, and I'm an instrument maker and various woodwind player, and I do a lot of touring and improvising and playing around.
I'm Kat Estachio. I am a recovering overachiever. And that applies to a lot of my music and art practice.
I'm Colin Tucker. I am an artist and curator. I make event scores and videos and installations.
I'm Andrew Furlong. I'm a bass player in Toronto here. Mostly work in free improv and free jazz kind of settings, and on and off I've been booking concert series here for the last 10 years or so.
You can hold on to that. I can ask the next thing, then we come back around again. That's okay. So, actually, everybody's introduction is totally related to one of the questions I have. But before we do that, I'm going to say also as like almost a longer form first question and introduction. Can you tell us a little bit about what you presented during the festival, which actually I guess would have been yesterday. So you can this can be more than 2 sentences. You can say what you played at, or who you played with, why you played with those people, any experiences in the square that you had that were very notable, whether it was your first time, anything that you'd like to share about the experience of playing or your practice involved with the performance yesterday.
Sure. I guess first of all, I was just saying this to Colin. I've been going to Intersection, the Young Dundas Square day at least, basically since I moved to Toronto. I think at least, I don't know when it began, but I can't really remember not going. So it was very cool for me just to be there as a performer. I was really grateful to get to bring a trio that has worked in a couple different configurations. Most recently, that trio with another drummer named Jake Orlix. We've been playing kind of as a quartet, sort of like a improvised Hawkwind boogie rock-esque band. That's under the direction of Kurt Newman, who was playing guitar yesterday. The drummer in the trio yesterday was Mark Zerwinski, and he and I have been playing together on and off for a long time. We both worked with this sort of really influential guitar player, Ken Aldcroft, who passed away a few years ago. And that was sort of when our relationship began, and I've been happy to play with both him and Kurt in a variety of bands, some composed, but yesterday was really just us doing our like free improv thing, sort of frenetic, sometimes aggressive, free jazz-esque music, kind of split in half with almost lowercase or like bug music sections, and that was something we just kind of put together for this one performance, which seemed like it would be a good fit for the space, and I think I was pretty happy with how it went.
So I presented a piece called In the Wake of the Santa Maria. It was, I guess we could call it an installation. That's probably the closest term we can use for it. So it's, I guess it's in a line of work that I've been doing with hidden speakers in spaces that are not concert hall, spaces that are already have things going on. So the ideal is not really to make a self-contained object, but to activate certain kinds of shifts in perception in the space. So this piece, this particular piece is it's an event score which specifies ways of installing speakers near carbon-producing infrastructure in an everyday setting. There's also theoretically the score can yield a video as well. So you add an audio intervention into found footage of carbon-producing infrastructures. So the piece it's sort of a figuration using a title and using sound, sort of a figuration for contextualizing global warming within long histories of imperialism. So the wake of the title is the wake of a ship, of a perpetrator of conquest, and then there's sort of a number of other layers sort of simultaneous to that. So it's the wake. So it plays a found recording of ocean waves, sort of relaxing ocean beach, recording that was sampled from the internet and then re-edited by me. So this is simultaneously a reference to rising sea levels caused by global warming, and it's also a reference to it's sort of a figuration of terra nullius, of sort of empty land, this sort of suite of colonial figurations of land that imagine land as being sort of evacuated of sovereignty of its original inhabitants or its present inhabitants. So this seemingly innocuous sort of relaxing ocean beach video, or like a lot of norms of the field recording field are sort of unwittingly at least very very resonant with these sort of long-standing ideas about land. So the piece is sort of an intervention, an attempt to recontextualize that audio. So yeah, I guess in a sense it's sort of a solo piece, but it's also something that has it's sort of a record of my attempt to engage in a certain way with a space that I don't have any control over, and I guess it's also something that's in dialogue with a number of theorizations of environmental crisis, particularly from indigenous studies writers like Zoe Todd and Black feminist scholars like Christina Sharp. So I'm talking for a while. So if you want to look into sort of my the sort of theoretical coordinates for this, you can go onto my website, colintucker.studio. I've written at more length about that. And then I guess like experiences in the space. I guess I live a few blocks from the space, so I had the opportunity to test the piece a few times at least with a small Bluetooth speaker, and I guess the piece basically worked the way I expected. But I guess I don't know. I guess this was an interesting opportunity to sort of look into the infrastructures surrounding the square and how they relate to the piece. And we're in this kind of horrible imperial metropole with banks who are funding global warming and mining companies who are perpetuating God knows what in the global south, among other things. So I guess it was an opportunity to take stock of that. I'm relatively new to town, so it was a learning experience for me. I've said enough.
So my setup, I can talk about my setup yesterday. I had 3 elements in my setup. One was a hydrophone that was submerged in a metal bowl that had rocks in it. And then another setup has a gong, kind of like a cymbal. And then there are 2 mics pointed at it. One is dry, and then the other one is going to, it went through a delay pedal. And then the third setup is a sample pad that contains 3 field recordings that I took of 3 different bodies of water in Ontario. And the 6 other samples in my pad are samples of physical gongs that I play. I play a gong tradition from the southern part of the Philippines called Mindanao, and the tradition is Kulintang music. And so I took the spirit of the gongs and then put the spirit in an electronic box, and I was processing the different samples with different effects that came with the sample pack. And so my approach to creating this kind of work is to kind of reconcile my relationship with land and water, more specifically with water, because I am drawn to it as an element, and how it has a lot of very audible or sonic qualities as metal, and metal is the element that the gongs are made of. And so yeah, the relationship of the waters in Ontario, me being a Filipino queer body in Ontario that's, far removed from my homeland, which isn't, home anymore, and how does that connect with indigenous Filipino instruments that me myself am not indigenous Filipino, I am diasporic. And so like this conversation of mess, so it like this whole like mixing of different things, and staying at or finding a point where I'm okay with the mess. And so it was really interesting yesterday. During my set, it was raining. I was talking to a bunch of people about this. It was raining and it was windy and there was seagulls, and it was really cool. And I described the experience as funny because it wouldn't have happened any other way, because my samples had also seagulls and water in it. So yeah, I had a really interesting time. It was fun as well. So and what was really cool with that is it was a performance that is like encapsulated in time space. So yeah.
Yesterday I did a solo performance with an instrument. Well, it's a bass clarinet, but I've built a whistle mouthpiece onto it, and so it does all sorts of fun and unexpected things. I've really been well, the thing that drew me to making instruments in the first place was starting to make overtone flutes and learning about the overtone series and mathematical relations between pitches, and well, that came later. It was more just the sound of it, the sort of mystery of all of the sounds that are inside of any sound that we hear, and how that influences how we hear pitch and melody. And I come from sort of a jazz saxophone background and have found my way into playing clarinet and playing different flutes and doing live processing and all sorts of things. In some of the techniques I'm exploring, in jazz they call it sort of sheets of sound, like a John Coltrane approach, where it's he was learning from his wife Alice, who played the harp, and playing some of her harp music, and getting these cascading repetitive patterns that overblew to different registers on the saxophone sometimes. So for me, kind of learning a little bit about that and hearing about that, there's a certain sort of transcendent or ecstatic state to what is accomplished there that feels really, in a way, similar to a lot of other kinds of techniques that blur the ongoingness of a sound and the repetitiveness of a sound. Like I was watching an interview with this metal guitarist from this band Liturgy that people love to hate, but I love Liturgy. And she was talking about tremolo picking in black metal and why it's such a thing. I think black metal is an interesting genre because it takes it's not soloistic music, you know? It's about catharsis, and it's about sort of the ecstatic in a similar way that like a lot of spiritual jazz from the 1970s is, in a total different perspective. But so I'm thinking about like I don't know, like a false fingering on a woodwind, and how that's a lot like a double pick on a guitar, and these cascading bits of sound and circular breathing, and trying to create an environment where maybe you can sit inside and forget about time for a little bit. And that's what I was doing a bit of yesterday. I was incorporating a little bit of live Ableton processing, and that's something that's new for me. But I want to explore more of. It's interesting. I was trying to create feedback loops within the program, so it's all software based, and usually what that results in is unexpected resonances coming up in the space that you're in, or resonances within my instrument. Sometimes I would just hold down a fingering, and it would create a feedback with the sound of the space, and I could change my fingering and not even blow into the instrument and have different things happen. Yesterday was interesting though, I think because of the level of ground noise in a square like that, it was a little bit unexpected. So anyway, I'm trying some new things out yesterday, and that's what was going on.
Very cool.
Mm-hmm.
So I run a concert series called Exit Points, and yesterday I opened the festival with a quintet that I put together, comprising Akim Angulo on shakuhachi, Benush Benamia on kamancha, Joyce To on mixed percussion, and Yong Chen on drums. And I thought we slayed. It was really, really good. And myself on modular synthesizer. I think my background is electroacoustic music. I was really interested in, I told Adam earlier today that I spent almost my entire undergrad programming in Pure Data. So for me, in my professional context of music, it was very cerebral. It was very like divorced from my body. And to the point where I stopped performing. And then in 2019, I found out that I was born intersex. And with that also came the reality that I was also infertile. And so there was all this grief also with the context of like, why did I only find out in my 30s that I was intersex is a reality of my body. And so I started, it just happened that I had been also working on a modular synthesizer, focused on playing with others, that I started improvising. I started booking shows with my favorite improvisers in the city, and I started to find out that free improvised music, I think the key to it is empathy, right? Because it's like, you're doing something that is potentially really, really scary or off or counter to what someone else is doing in the room. And so what I found was, in that context, everyone in the room was like holding me, right? Like they didn't know what I was going through, but I felt held by what, I felt held, like really, really held in those moments. And so I would go 1 or 2 times a week and play my heart out, and it saved my life. Like I was going through so much that year, that at some point I came upon this opportunity to start a series, and thought, well, this will be a nice way to craft a way of putting on concerts that's in a vision that, in my opinion, or at least captures and presents all the things that I experienced as someone who was in need in that way. And when the pandemic hit, I was able to use my 10 years of scholarly and software engineering experience of working in telemat music on a number of really, really high-profile contexts, as well as just regularly, to take the concert online. And I did like 250 free one-on-one lessons over Zoom with the musicians that were about to play, or the dancers that were about to play, so that they were prepared and that they could feel confident in their setup, and also then go on and teach lessons or stream and all that stuff. And so that was again something that also for me made me sane, because in the pandemic I was able to keep playing with the people I really cared about, and I got to meet people around the world and do that kind of stuff. And so maybe I'll just close by saying, now the concert series is in person again at a really lovely venue in Toronto called Array Music. My engineer was Peter Frampton's engineer for 15 years. I give him a stage plot, I give him like an input list. I'm learning how to promote. I'm getting, the last 6 months in a row, I've had a full house. And I started a label to also put out all the recordings from the shows. We're mixing using Dolby Atmos. So I just want to close by saying, where I'm at right now is really focused on trying to make, trying to present and raise and change the paradigm of how free improvised music can be presented in the city, and to a point where tickets are going to be sold out in advance, and that's really where I'm at right now. So, yeah.
Shout out Matt Legg.
Matt Legg, go hire him. He's the wind beneath my wings.
He worked with us on Friday night too. He was one of the audio techs.
Oh,
on Friday
he
night.
was doing that.
Yeah,
I
him
wonder.
and Ryan Clark were on it. Yeah.
Hell yeah, that's great. That's great. Yeah.
Yeah, well, I just hearing what you were saying about that kind of empathy between musicians. So my piece outside in the sound installation, I think in moving into sound installation. Well, I'll connect to that, but I'll just give a little description. So between each of the sets on yesterday's program, during the set changes, my sound installation would run, and I think it was kind of when we talked about it, it was as an alternative to whatever music the engineer might happen to play between sets. It's like, well, maybe we try to find something more in the spirit of the festival with something a little more experimental. So the concept for the piece was taking a space and turning a familiar space and turning it into something a little alien, a little unfamiliar by processing the sounds that are in the space and then putting this back into the space. And so I had microphones set up at a few places around the square, and they were picking up some street noise, and then I was processing that, and then then I had spent a couple days before yesterday biking around the city and making field recordings, like in Tommy Thompson Park, which I found really beautiful, and also the streetcars and just walking around town and biking around town. So and originally the goal, Christopher spoke as artist talker was talking about wanting to do a fully live performance. I do have that desire. I was hoping the piece could be purely live processing, but it's not the kind of piece you can like really practice all the time, because how often do you have access to a major city square and a huge PA system and can experiment with sounds that are passing by? So of course I had some recordings from last year when I was visited with a Zoom, like walking around the square, that I was working with to test, and I tried it outside in Atlanta, put up PAs outside, put some microphones up, try to see how feedback would work based on the limitations of where I could place microphones. And but I thought it would probably be smart to have some pre-recorded material that could kind of intersect with make some connection. I think there's also an idea that Jerry had mentioned about this idea of people coming to the square. So I had like one of the recordings was of the subway streetcar ride to the square. But the reason is, I think your point about empathy, I think like that for me the goal was to have the people ideally have the sounds in the space, people be able to be aware that the sounds they were making in the space were being processed, and that was tricky to accomplish because that was the goal. So there'd be some sense of this is a live interactive sound installation that everyone's a performer potentially in. And there were some moments where that kind of happened. Another other aspect is kind of juxtaposing, so to juxtapose the kind of natural acoustic space with the virtual and kind of make processing and like all this machinery of audio equipment kind of more visible, but then in the actual experience of it, I mean, it was also a lot of sound time because it was 15-20 minutes segments times 8. you know, so it was like 2 hours. So I was trying to figure out how to make that shift happen in advance, and like what was there a larger trajectory, but so much had to, in the end, just was kind of by feel. Like also when the rain came down, the mics are getting wet, and we're putting plastic on them. Then that's a different sound, which is also very cool. Or also just the wind sound. Even though I had pretty good wind protection, I thought still there was kind of, with the feedback, there was kind of a wind howl that I was trying to kind of deal with. So that was it was I wouldn't say it was totally stressful, but it was I was all the time throughout the day, like trying different things out, trying to reroute, experimenting, you know, switching which mics I was using, switching the balance between live and pre-recorded, and and also understanding the sound system that I'm plugged into, where the built-in compressors are on the main board for protection, and then having a 1 second delay on the microphones. So there were these rhythms that were, you know, it was pretty unwieldy, which I like that. I like that, trying to figure a way through something. But I think I appreciated most of the moments where there could be some sense of a juxtaposition or like of the live sounds and the what was coming through the speakers, like some aspect. And I think that happened a few times, so I appreciated that, because that you know, thinking about trying to find ways to make that connections happen through these technologies. So that was part of the idea. So yeah,
sweet.
Yeah.
I knew when I put this group together that I wouldn't have to ask many questions. I knew that there would be instantly almost like every individual thing somebody said, I'm like, oh, I could talk about this for the next hour, or generate another set of questions based on this, whether it's the telematic presentation or black metal or any of that kind of stuff, or, you know, yeah, anything. But I will, so we're coming to, we're almost 8, but we still got some time, and we can go a little over 8, but I'll combine my next 2 questions that I was going to think of into basically one. So when everybody gave their intros, I mean, this is not uncommon for, I think, this room of artists, or for like this festival, or for like a lot of our practices, or a lot of our collaborations, or a lot of our friends, to be honest. But sometimes, like, I am in environments where I'm like, oh wait, this is actually kind of uncommon, and what I'm talking about is everybody who I gave the mic to and I said introduce yourself right away listed like 7 things that they do. Like nobody just was like, I'm a performer and I do this. Like nobody nobody said my name is whatever, I'm a composer and I write music that sounds like this, or whatever. Like everybody listed like 7 things, and one was a creative or a performative thing, and another was an administrative thing, and another was a technological. Like everybody is very like multi-practice here, I think, and I think the festival naturally brings those people together, or there's certain things, but it is not actually as common sometimes in contemporary or experimental music. Some people are just 1 or 2 things, which is also fine. But anyway, I don't even know if I have like a massive question about this, more than I just would like to hear people talk about how they like reconcile or connect those things, because for me, I feel like they're very like fluid and together. Like some people are like, oh, you do like so many things, and I'm just like, I don't know, I feel like they're all very kind of interconnected in certain ways, because like I come from a similar background to even what Christopher was saying, of like self-booking shows, or self-organizing things, or self-creating things, or whatever, you know, and it all kind of joins together. And I'll also share that I thought was something was really interesting. Somebody said something to me the other day. So like an older, kind of more legacy artist basically said that, oh, it's so good that you're co-ADing or working with Intersection, because like funding or organizations or people love somebody who works in admin, or the people love an artist that works in admin. And I was like, what does that mean? I mean, I'm like dependable because I work in admin, and creative artists are not dependable. Like, I don't know, right? But this artist was saying like, yeah, basically once I started doing admin roles, I started being taken more seriously, or getting more funny, or I was more successful, or I was getting booked more with my creative practice. So I'm like, yeah, they're all kind of like connected in a way. So anyway, what I'm going to say is everybody said this kind of multifaceted list of a million things, even Kat said I'm recovering overachiever, which is also how I'm feeling with it these days. But I love if everybody could just say like if they feel like they have to compartmentalize these things in order to have some sense of sanity, or if they just totally connect, or if there's certain things they feel are connected or not, and maybe like not in a super long description, but maybe just how you feel those things are connected or not, and then also like what's next for what you're doing, or what are you trying to move towards. Like I know I'm trying to find more space between these things because it's very easy to get burnt out, but some other people I feel like have gotten a really good rhythm on it. Like Michael, for example, seems to be in a very good rhythm with it now, you know? So yeah.
Yeah, that's a great observation. I'll say that my practice changed a lot once I got a camera. I used to be a composer who wrote like for acoustic instruments only, and then I got a camera, I started taking photos, and I started video recording and then video editing, and then like got me into the world of media. And then it changed how I understood what I was doing, my music practice. And in some ways, later on, I realized, oh, actually, it was like noisy, gestural, sounds, but they were often had a kind of situatedness in the space. So there's a kind of theatrical, a kind of staging thing. So I think it kind of made sense. But I think part of it is, it's like if maybe you're a performer, acoustic performer, and then one day you get a chance to like record yourself, and then you're like, wow, that's kind of interesting, and where do I put the mics and all that, and then you discover this creative practice, and maybe it's just that these tools are now more available, production has been democratized, and like it's on YouTube, so it's fun. We can get into all these skills, and they just not kind of happen naturally, and then of course you want to engage them in your creative work, and then we're in such this media world where, so I think it's just kind of natural to that we have that comes out of it, and but yeah, so that's definitely my future work. And I still write acoustic pieces, but also working on video projects, and I mean the next big one is a series of video poems, so like spoken word texts with audio and audio video components. So that's what's next.
To echo that, this is a really good question. I guess I would say that I was always a tinkerer and just always very much DIY, and would always just kind of jump at any opportunity to try something. And like in my early 20s, by my early 20s, I had 3 different concert series that I had done and then put aside. And then in Montreal, I ran like a lecture series that was bilingual, and I built a guitar pedal for James Taylor, and like I was just always like trying different things, building software, doing weird stuff. But I think like on the subject of all these like potentially disparate things that I find myself doing, Exit Points is this weird thing where it's like the very first thing I ever did where I just did it all together. Like I had never put myself on any of the shows that I ran before. I was always like the promoter or like behind the scenes. But I just really wanted to play with the people that I was booking. And so like suddenly I had this thing that like when I would get kind of tired or burnt out on the administrative side of things, I had the performance to look forward to. And that kept me going. And like this month is number 42. I've done like a monthly show since 3.5 years ago. So like I think that was the big thing for me, was like recognizing that like, oh, I can like really believe in this thing and also believe in myself and put myself in there. And then what started to happen was everything that I've been doing is also an expression. Like and I get to take chances every single time, whether it's an artistic or administrative chance. So that's been really, really lovely. And then in terms of the next steps, I'm really, at the moment I've been sort of reaching out and trying to get other people to start doing series. I think and I would also implore all of you to try doing series. The thing about a series is that you get to take chances. If something doesn't go well in a show, there's another one that you know is coming up. So cool, like whatever worked, keep doing that, and what didn't work, do something differently. and it can be even mundane. Like the most recent one I did, the risk I took was at the very end, I was like hosting. I said, "Hey everyone, thanks so much for coming. Could you all please put your chairs away?" You know, and that meant that I wasn't there an extra half hour. You know, like it was like, and everyone did, and I wasn't sure if they would. I thought some of them might, you know, I don't know, but everyone was down. So, yeah, that's what I would say is like, iterations are really valuable in a practice. Yeah, cool.
Yeah. Well, sometimes I think about like, oh, how did I end up doing all these things?
Yeah.
Wait, and then like, why did I end up doing all these things? But I think, well, to some degree it's chance, to some degree it's just sort of like following your nose, and to some degree I think it's just like existing in this ridiculous world right now, and the state of trying to like make money doing what we do. But I do a lot of teaching, not so much right now as I have in the past, but I don't know if it's one thing or if it's many things. Everything is everything, but like I know certainly like just from like a nuts and bolts like playing music thing, whether it's playing other people's music or playing my music or playing any of the number of instruments, it's like they all influence one another, and usually when I have a breakthrough in one place, I'll have a breakthrough in another. So maybe that just has more to say about us being holistic, you know, beings than it does about a career as fragmented or as unified as it is. But yeah. Oh, I don't know. What's next for me? I've been living in Montreal for 8 months, and that's been really lovely. But I have a lot of people to meet. I was here in Toronto for 14 years, and I think I've really learned the true value of like community and how long it takes to build, and being in a new place where I don't have that yet, you know. So I'm excited to like continue to grow and learn and meet people and make art with people in a new place. Yeah.
What you said earlier about everything is everything, I feel like that resonates with me. And I'm also thinking about two schools of thought right now. One is, and I preface this by saying that this is not in a self-deprecating way, that I didn't think that it was possible for me to be a musician, to be a composer, to be an artist, and that's like just based on upbringing and background, cultural background. And the other school of thought is this idea that that everybody is artist, and this comes from Magindanaoan teachers that play Kulintang music, the music that I play. They treat every person in their community as artist, whether that is in music, in dance, in weaving, in telling stories, in dreaming, and dreaming is part of artistic processes. And so I think about all of the different things that I'm doing as like a puzzle piece. And Andrew, you were asking earlier, is it like is compartmentalizing a way to keep sane? But I think that it's actually the other way around. I feel like maybe there is this fire that compels me to be like, let's try that out. Let's try that out. I don't know what it's gonna sound to play samples of water in a public square where it's raining, but this is what we have. This is what grounds me in the present moment, and it's just so incredible that we get to experiment and to also further ourselves in the way that we think, in the way that we do our art, whatever that is, that kind of inspires us to do the thing that we're doing. But yeah, I think all of that stuff is just like this big jarbled like thought that came to me like when you asked those questions. Just I don't know, that's kind of my answer. And I think what's next is I'm actually like not it's hard for me to do solo things these days because of this like thinking about what's next, you know. I feel like there is this constant expectation. Maybe it's like a self what do you call this? Maybe it's coming from myself, like this the expectation from myself to self-imposed. Yes, that's the word. Self-imposed expectation to do the next thing or like improve on the process. But then like sometimes I just kind of want to sit with something, and it's really uncomfortable to sit in something. Like that's kind of like what I'm learning with drone is that it's really uncomfortable to like hold something for like 3 minutes. What more for like 30 minutes? And so I feel like, yeah, I think the next step is like just sit with the discomfort and I don't know, see where that takes me.
Well, thank you. Yeah, I guess I would second the idea that, like you were saying, that for me it's like the opposite of compartmentalization. Like I'm drawn to do certain things and, certain labels and maybe more importantly, like sort of institutional lanes that I'm forced into make it difficult to pursue those ideas and have for a long time. So that's sort of what led me to start organizing and curating. So in that capacity, I've acted mainly through a collective called Null Point, who is sort of based in Buffalo, and we played at this festival maybe 4 years ago. So that, so I think that sort of arose out of the fact at that point I was sort of, acting more or less as a composer in the art music field, writing scores for spectatorial settings, but at the same time I was paying a lot of attention to what was going on in contemporary art and noticed that there was much greater flexibility in terms of format and sort of critical engagement with all the institutional formats that were available, and I think there was a questioning of a lot of the defaults. The defaults weren't just what you did, and that was really important to me, and I think I'm still sort of working through the implications of that. I mean, I feel like not very many people in the concert music world have really even begun to think of the implications of that. I mean, it's not about individuals, but it's like our field. I'm not sure we even have critical terms for dealing with that. So in response to that, I started curating so that I wasn't just like supplying a score and sending off a PDF to literally emailing a PDF to performers in another city for some festival and having 3 days of rehearsals before a concert, which is fine, but I didn't want to be limited to that. So I started producing site-specific events, participatory events, sort of thinking about how, again, certain kinds of ways of organizing artistic practice that are now well established in the gallery arts. What could those mean in music, and what would it mean to have a sort of rigorous performance practice and curatorial practice in music around those things. So I mean, a lot of my work going back 10 or 15 years, I mean, it's really about pursuing certain intersections between fields known as music and contemporary art, and specifically just asking certain questions with respect to musical techniques that have been asked a long time ago in contemporary art. So that's sort of how I started curating, and I guess I found like as a composer, when I got to a certain point where I started to breach certain limits, it became very difficult to operate just as a composer, and I needed a bit of infrastructure and having the continuity that comes with having your own organization and building partnerships and working with a consistent group of people. That was invaluable, because I think what I've done in the last 5 years wouldn't have really been conceivable without that kind of an infrastructure. But yeah, I don't know, Andrew, you asked about like the compartmentalization and conflict. Like, I guess for me, yeah, I don't know. I guess for me, like, I guess it's just like an issue of like finite headspace, and I find that like at a given time, I'm going to be working more on maybe I don't know. I find I have to be either like mostly working on curating other people's music or working on my own music, and you know, I guess everyone has their own preference there. And I guess I guess the other thing that I do recently is writing, and yeah, so some of my recent work, I have been thinking about, you know, what does it mean, what does institutional critique mean in the context of concert music, and what does that mean vis-a-vis you know, some really amazing theorizing that, you know, academics and social movements have done. I guess my recent work is sort of around critical excavations and deconstructions of whiteness in contemporary in concert music and in spatial politics. So that sort of led me to you know, to engage with. I mean, there's some really formidable writing in particular that's been done in the field of Black studies and academia that, you know, kind of you know, challenges, you know, much of what, you know, what we think about Western modernity, what Western modernity thinks about itself. So I guess for me right now, I'm doing a bit of writing just to sort of work through that and to work through it in a way that I hope can, you know, circulate beyond me and catalyze conversations within the field. So Andrew, you asked what I'm working on. So my big project at the moment is a book of intertwined event scores. It's a collection of event scores, you know, somewhat an homage to, you know, famous 60s collections of event scores, but there are also some essays that will accompany that, but the goal is to arrive at a document that is, you know, simultaneously it's grounded in some radical theorizing, but also offers these, you know, fairly accessible event scores that can be done in concert halls, you know, offering some defamiliarizing, politicizing perspectives on the concert hall. So yeah, I've said enough. I'll leave it at that.
Great answers. I'm trying to remember exactly your question, but I don't think I've ever had any conflict between doing multiple things. It was like modeled early on for me. Like we were all talking about DIY music, right? Like I grew up in a really small town in Alberta, but because it was the early 2000s, there were like 5 hardcore bands, and there was always someone renting like a community center or something, and everybody was in a band and booking shows and was an attendee at the shows, and I think that was modeled early on. And when I moved here, I saw the same thing with like the jazz, the left of center jazz scene here. There was Ken Aldcroft and Joe Sarbara, Melina Alaman. All these people had series. I would see them around. Everybody was again doing these 3 things, and it was moving between them fairly easily. And I think when the scene, not to oversimplify, but when it has been the most burning here is when people are between burnout stages, like you're saying, and there's able to keep, you know, we're able to keep 6 or 7 artist curated series going at the same time, plus various moneyed gigs throughout the year, and that's when things are really good. And of course, people need to take breaks, and maybe you can't always curate, or you have to step back from the music, or whatever the needs are at a particular time. But I think if there's an ideal situation with music in the city, it's that every artist is at least considering these 3 things. Maybe you can't go to shows all the time. Everyone has life commitments, but you know, you can really bring your best to a performance, or you can just send an email about maybe booking someone's series or something like that. And it just seems, I think, sort of clear. There's obviously life stuff that makes it way more complicated. And for me right now, that what's next part is I'm going through one of these phases where things are getting complicated. This performance yesterday was my only gig this summer. I have to take some time off for injury reasons, so I'm not sure what's next. I'm gonna have to kind of collect myself and just focus on healing, and then I have some projects that I was hoping to record this summer, and those will be done when they get done. And in the meantime, I'll just try to see some live music, or I'm not booking any series or anything right now, so maybe pick up that side of things a little bit. But yeah, I guess that's sort of my thought.
That's amazing. Yeah, that's okay. That's amazing. That's great. Thanks, y'all. I don't know what else to. Maybe the last thing I'll add is that I am very long overdue sending the CMC my answers to a series of interview questions as a new associate composer, and one of those questions is something about like what was like unexpected about like your practice, or what did you think things were going to be like before that are different now, or something like that. And you mentioned the last one, you mentioned like it's always been like kind of ingrained kind of thing, so it's like pretty much the same thing with me, but just like in Labrador, it's like booking community centers with 5 hardcore bands that have the same interchanging 10 members, and that's also the audience, and it's all, you know, like, so it's also that. And I just remember when I got like my like music school acceptance, or when I started playing like classical guitar to go to music school, or I discovered composed music or whatever, I was like, it's like, this is my way out of it. I was like, people are gonna take the weird shit I do seriously, and I don't have to, like, I'm gonna like, this is all gonna have some sort of like basis underneath it besides whatever. And no, it's really just the same. It's literally nothing has changed. It's like I just do it somewhere else now and with different things. So yeah, I don't know. I don't think I have anything else to add. Maybe we should keep rolling. Cool? Yeah, Jerry, cool. Okay, so let's keep rolling. Thanks, y'all. I really appreciate it. Yeah, so for the interest of time, let's everybody who's playing like set up right now. Emmanuel will talk for like a 15-minute period or so, and then we'll all play. So we'll start playing by at least we'll take 5 minutes or so to set up, and then we'll definitely start playing by like 8:40 or something.
How should we set up? Which way are we facing?
Oh yeah, stand let's just do like a circle, like a semicircle or something. Yeah.
Facing this way?
Yeah. Oh no, facing this way. There is still an imaginary nature.
Suiting you well?
Yeah, it's been lovely getting to know him on the radio series and the personalities. The sounds. It's interesting to like hear the sounds of Toronto and hear the sounds of Montreal. And yeah, it's like different flavors, which is really cool.
Oh,
yeah.
cool.
You were, how long were you?
4 years. I did my undergrad.
Oh, cool.
I really miss it.
Yeah,
yeah, thank you.
I don't miss it anymore now.
Yeah, it was like from guitar and tape, and then the whole album has like.
You found your thing here.
Found my thing here.
Yeah.
But for a long time, I didn't find my thing here. It was like really sad.
Yeah, it's like I haven't done many.
But yeah, no, lots of good titles.
Sweet. Did you find something? It's a really good place. Sweet, I'm gonna run.
Yeah.
My business.
I've done projects like at a museum where different musicians in different spaces, and students on installations and like watching it.
Oh really?
So like I kind of curated an immersive thing. So I'm interested. So
yeah, that's right.
Broader.
Okay. Thanks for. I wanted to say it, and I was just gonna keep rolling. I was gonna say, in this house we love liturgy.
In this house, I loved how many people reacted to you.
Yeah, that was the way to like perk up the. Not that the room was not perked up, but that's a way to perk up the room. Yeah. Honestly, the only people that hate that stuff, hate liturgy and hate stuff,
Yeah.
It's just like they're not morons. They're not music. Well, more. Yeah. Like, you know, but you know what I mean. It's just like it is like a fascinating genre, like founded by like these weird like isolated like white nationalists, and now it's being like reclaimed by like this. Me and Becca had this huge conversation before. Yeah.
Everyone playing.
Yes.
Because we could also involve people who don't have to. I have it. So where should I place the timer while we're playing? Like stopwatch.
Could do that. Yeah, sure.
Right there, like
right there.
Front. You're gonna put it up here, weren't you?
No, this is gonna be the score.
Okay. So maybe
so I can try
maybe on like a table right here or something. Maybe we can even get
Maybe,
like
or like,
I can try and earmark it.
yeah.
Should I just play the
yeah. And then sure. Yeah.
occupied as kind of like running.
That's so.
I didn't actually. That's like you actually see out the whole thing was that was engaging it. I mean, kind of more was my dream was if people walking by the street was like if I wanted to like things closer. Well, it's also
It's far away.
like
It's actually been really
walking by would somehow
like
realize
that's why
that
they decided
whatever sounds that was coming out of it comes back and the cars going by would come back out. That only happened.
What's the
But yeah, there's like really loud sirens.
Oh, yeah.
But
also, it worked, you know, the first couple of years.
Maybe there's some people walking down the street who like what the hell's going on. You know, now in the square, I think a lot of that
jump on it.
sometimes I think
Yeah, but I was helped with that.
so there's people might not have always been able to tell if there's happening live or so maybe some people just kind of were hanging out, chilling out.
Oh, that's like so legit.
Thing happening. But that was my sense. Probably mostly like okay. There's
No, I wasn't taking it. Yeah,
sounds
but fair enough.
happening,
Fair
or
enough.
or ignoring it.
This thing having I don't know what series having been back.
I don't know if he's coming back because I also
Yes.
I actually texted him in between the stuff and I said, hey, like I still owe you money, so I'll know. I don't think he's on the road yet.
If I do it again,
He's at the hotel again, right?
Yeah, he goes to Montreal tomorrow. Before down in that, like putting in a car, like hot mics, you know.
That's true.
Yeah.
You want to take that? Yeah, oh yeah, sure. 6 or 7 months there.
Where's the
brought it back in? We're getting it.
We're able to coordinate. So
then,
no, that was
pandemic hit, and then it's like
that was also
meeting
having a
extra
poster.
really, that's like
Really?
all cost.
Really? I feel a little bad.
And they probably make way.
Where's
the
probably, yeah.
Yeah, it's still there.
And so I think it would have been great to show it in Saturday.
It's still so nice.
You know, with like your ring from the something, and
It's
kind of
just
invitation.
It's like
you know,
fun.
that would have been
there's something.
that would have been
Like how long did
Yeah.
you expect that?
I'll cut it down.
Yeah.
Okay,
Okay.
sure.
They don't email you back.
How long is
Oh,
it?
I wouldn't expect. I've never like.
It's okay if you're 5-10.
I played there is fine.
okay if you go
And,
5-10.
you know,
Jesse's worked at 10, it's not
they
long.
also
It's not, yeah. It's not her cut off by 9, and Josie did like till 10 for this time.
Oh yeah.
Beginning at 9:15.
Yeah.
We're still busy.
Nice song.
We started 15 minutes late, so.
I did nice piano.
Yeah.
Pricey.
Oh, it costs money to.
Yeah. I used to play there a lot. The guy, the interior kitchen's parents owns the building.
But I guess you also
For some reason,
think about
every
how
couple of years,
artists
throws a bunch of money at it, and now he's invested so
like
much
feed
that
them into it
he
or
justify charging
the experience of it or
by the hour for its
just the kind of staging.
and then you gotta pay extra. Come one of these little
10 minutes there, but that's okay.
dime kind of.
That's unfortunate. It's a nice space, but I guess I'm not too surprised to do that because it's not a bar either, right? So they don't.
Yeah, he maybe does like little alcohol sales or something. I'm not sure. Straight because.
Oh, no, you need to go to the store. Okay, yeah, that's cool. No one else is going right now.
Yeah, there is this place.
Turn me on.
Yeah, we have a duo.
You see folks like doing out there. His ex. Not at the net, but in the voice.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'll let Slash go.
That'd be fine.
Yeah, they're nice there too. It's like felt.
She held her cat for a sec. And
It's a white
doesn't
wall
have to
out.
like pull over. And they, oh, just like 5 minutes.
Yeah.
Like she's ready. Okay. So when you're ready,
sound booth. And it was
I don't know
like,
how people do it.
how do people interact in chat? You know, I tell them,
Yeah.
come in here,
Random,
you know, like check the
bank
Madison
basically just
Square.
I love the radio.
Yeah,
It's like
send us emails and
yeah,
the
how
only
do
thing
people
that's ever come
knock
out
it
is
over?
like,
Get that someone
there's no
watching it.
continuity. It's always just
On these labels.
On these labels, yeah.
It's like, you sound
I think there are labels that we should put out, not anything, but it's kind of cool, and you're not asking for anything, they'll put it out basically. Like, there are some labels like
Do they buy you out, or do they get people get paid?
I've never been involved in that. I
Okay.
don't think they buy it. I think maybe you get paid.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
They'll pay you. But
Like have musicians invite musicians to it.
I almost think it's better if I could go back to just have your own thing, and at least you can have what you can buy kind of work. Because then you end up, this way you end up with all these records where art's totally different on everything, and it's all on different like tiny things. I could kind of make sure all this shit's going on.
That's actually having like a self.
Oh, I see.
No, they're really good.
There's like a couple values.
Yeah.
What if you
Yeah, I
more
see.
like
Right, now I'm going.
yeah.
So yeah, so I'll help you with the Zoom here. So that TV's still muted, right? Okay.
Like, rather than it was like the public.
But Brian has gotten
Yeah.
Okay, so now we're
what
going
he's
to
played
do.
on
Yeah. How would you get musicians?
is like my guitar.
Amazing.
You have to sing like a melody to get in.
Where's the sticky?
Yeah.
It sounds like in the
If you're like
HDMI.
a mid-level artist, the label
No,
Tim Burton, saxophone player.
Tim who?
Tim Burton.
No, not yet.
yeah.
Been around a long time.
Give them permission, like let them feel invited.
It's a lot of
He
And
like,
yeah,
all these records come out, that's all fine. Like basically, when you share screen, jazz label now, just complaining, like they just put it out.
Maybe if it's like a demo
buy
way.
domains for like
No, so here you're gonna choose.
selling.
No, you're not going to focus because that'll be a TV.
Oh,
You're going to headphones, that's right.
It sounds like
Right now I should have something here
So I don't know what the lesson is there, but
That can go loud. I'll leave that on mute. That slider is right there.
Yeah.
It's unmuted. Yeah, this slider is there. You need to activate it. What else is there?
Brian's fun to talk to about stuff.
But also can take it a different direction.
He has a reasonable expectation from like different windows of my phone.
So you can do
this compared to most artists. It's high, too high of a self-something, but it's just like he just wants like the sound at the gig to be good, or he just wants like wants the poster to look good. Yeah, it's sometimes funny. Making very small.
It's so cute.
Oh,
But yeah,
That's very
but yeah, I really don't know
It's my first time doing this with like
Yeah.
you know, large like mixed ensemble, so I'm really
I remember I did this show
Yeah, you should.
with a bunch of dancers.
Yeah.
And
Six
I
months ago.
don't know much about music, but I'm excited to.
I was like, I wasn't making a big deal of it. But I was
I'm
making
stoked to do it. It's gonna be fun.
real
It's gonna sound so, especially just like you three right now, like the sounds that you guys are gonna make together is gonna be like so cool.
I send you something on my left channel and I'm hearing it on both speakers. I need you to pan it left. And like, it was like an hour of like, of them up in the booth, of them trying to sort of like placate me and me being like, no, I understand, but like, you know, but what I do is stereo, I do stereo stuff that needs to be done. And there's like people in the audience who were like the other dancers and the other pieces, and I could tell they were like, this is gonna get a little whatever. But like,
But because I have like,
Yeah, you gotta.
it's like, you know, you brought me in and I gave you a list of what I needed, and now I have to
yeah, that's the situation.
explain
You, like,
beg you to do the thing that you asked me to do.
That's his experience.
Yeah.
mean,
it's
but
super cool.
yeah, it's
And
good
they
to feel like
have a range of like
Sometimes,
there's
yeah.
stuff that's
Yeah.
like basically market ready.
It depends.
There's stuff that's like DIY, doesn't have duct tape, like I mean it is a competition.
Yeah, of course.
This is
Yeah,
so
of course.
badass.
It's tricky. It's I think it can go.
It's
Can go both
gonna
ways.
be quite thin because of the mallet.
Oh
Yeah,
yeah.
But that's
That's
okay.
what it is.
I'm cool with that.
You can figure out pretty quickly.
Did you test Cap's stuff yet?
no.
Yeah, I'm sure.
Oh yes.
I mean, maybe
Were you at that,
No, do it just for something.
I don't know. I don't like. I don't have anything that's like.
You can
Like,
check it out. They're also really cool. Mallet visuals.
Oh,
I've
that's
seen
Yeah, we did.
like they have a range of
And they were on tour with the guy
projects that
doing
like
laptops.
they take into consideration
Somehow they had set it up like
it's
what's my first time hearing like prototypes that's really
They
like
do that. So they like.
all around the room.
Monitor like so it's like not.
it's just I don't know this for sure. It's based on the 2 years I've been at
I don't know how that works. I don't know any
projects. It's like they try to get rid of it. So
that's
you know, like they would like
Okay, so here
I don't think it was at all
Yeah.
stereo, or especially mono. So it's a huge part of the sound. And totally blew me away. So I'm glad they had it working.
That's fun.
Can you hold on one second?
Was the artist or the
Yeah, I've actually been meaning to like go back
Put it
and
a little bit more?
listen to their stuff.
Yeah, try that.
Really like they like it. And I think that's what's happening. I don't know, but
It's very subtle, but if I can, because you're right front speaker, if I crank it more, you can start feedback.
That's great.
it's just harsh noise.
Place it so that it's not.
But that's the thing about when you spread out multiple channels is that especially with a really intense texture, you can hear more.
Oh, I was like, what is that? Sorry, go ahead. Yeah.
Whereas if it was
If
just like
not, I could just do
it's
this.
just a lot of
Do you want to try once more?
you get depending where you're sitting, you get nice phasing artifacts as well, which is really nice. That sounds like really.
It was something I have to say. I don't know what the experience was like headphones or like
There we go, I got it.
monitors or I was like, that's kind of why I wanted to go back.
There we go.
And just an
Yeah.
intense short songs, like 20 minutes that super loud.
Yeah.
Everything's clicking.
I know what I did.
But yeah, I don't know. Do you work with like
I know what I did.
modular
I turned the wrong channel. You want to try once more?
No, I'm
there it is.
Do you want me to?
like you don't use it long.
Maybe turn that just a little bit down. Yeah. Back to where you had it before.
Yeah.
But it's like on the RO side, so I just figured out this one. But it can
a bunch of tracks.
Yes. If there's any feedback from that mic at some point, it's just this one. Or even, lower the fader. Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah, the only other thing I would try is, I think volumes will be generally fine, but if you're over here, if, you'll be further out.
Yeah, it depends on which notch is
Okay. I think everybody will be able to balance. But if anything
I've only been
happens,
like in the same
we'll
room
leave
as
kind of cat channels around where they're at, and if either one of us seems too loud, it's me and that seems
I'll probably
wrong.
Yeah,
And I've got it on my list. Okay, alright, so we're good. So then the volume, did you test the volume out of that?
I think the way to think of it is
We're good? Alright.
Oh yeah. You know?
It's gonna be like.
Should
There's a lot of I'll probably
Yeah, I've never like really had influence, but
I was gonna say,
There will be a score.
right up here.
That's funny for me because I don't
Taurus. Oh, Taurus. Oh, yeah, 'cause of course Patrick's got a Taurus.
He has two sets apparently.
Of course. Oh, yeah, of course he does. They're probably like on a shelf somewhere. Of course, of course. Do you need a mic or no?
No, no.
I have a little stick. It's like a little case. If you like, I could like put a cord in.
Do you need the intro or anything?
Yeah, that would be pretty cool, yeah.
I'll make sure Allison's all good and I'll make sure Justin's all good.
Crazy. You guys have a lot of mine.
I have enough stuff. Not that I wouldn't be sending those but
They seem to have this cool aesthetic. They're all like gunmetal. Every time I look at it, it's good.
Channel your me for this whole weekend.
Alright, so hey everyone, we're gonna get started now. We're gonna talk a bit more about Eastman and Buddha. So yeah, I'm really stoked to be here. My name is Emmanuel Jacob Lacopo. You could call me Manny. It's just been so great. It's my first time in Toronto, first time at Intersection, and yeah, it's been awesome. It's a big
ever in Toronto.
First time ever. As Andrew said, it's a very Montreal thing to do. Just be Canadian, never visit Toronto, and think your city's the best. You know, that's just what I do. So yeah, big thank you to Andrew, to Jerry, to Intersection for having me here. It's really been a dream come true. Thank you to CMC for hosting this wonderful evening. It's awesome. And so, okay, so a little bit about me and what I do. I'm a guitarist, composer, researcher based in Montreal. And a lot of what I do is I try to pull from all the different stylistic and cultural worlds of the guitar that I grew up around and recontextualize that within classical music to try to create a more realistic picture of the genre in the 21st century and a more realistic picture of the guitar within classical music, because quite honestly, I don't think the guitar is ever really used to its full extent in classical music nor communicated as such. So I'm really trying to show people that the guitar is just such a wild instrument that can do anything, and I'm really lucky to have like amazing friends like Andrew who inspire me all the time and show me new cool sounds and beat boops, and yeah, it's great. And so the reason why I'm here today is because not long ago I released an album with People Places Records called Eastman, and it was a sort of reimagination of some of Eastman's works for a whole wide array of different settings of guitar, whether it's electric guitar and tape, processed classical guitar that doesn't sound anything like classical guitar, classical guitar and tape, or in the case of Gay Gorilla, it was like 40 electric guitar tracks that were then each like somewhat sampled or manipulated in their own way. So I can't even open that project on my laptop anymore because it just instantly crashes, and I'm like, why did I buy this Mac M1 if it can't do this simple thing? But I digress. And so there's two big reasons as to why I wanted to pursue this album. The first one is really important to me, and it's when you look at classical music, there's such a wide, diverse body of people that devote their lives to this craft, this genre. But this body of people isn't ever really represented in the music we study, the composers we talk about and perform, the people that teach us. And so when I first heard Eastman's music, I was blown away for a ton of reasons. One, the music is just absolutely beautiful. It really pulled on my heartstrings. It really made me just feel like a whole spectrum of emotions, and I thought it was really awesome. On the other side of that, I've noticed when I started diving into his music and actually playing it, that there's something about the way that he writes that catalyzes this creativity in you and brings out your own artistic voice. And I never had that experience before where I had another person's written music that taught me something about myself, taught me about how I think about my instrument, showed me my downfalls as a player, what I'm good at, all these sort of different things. And then it also blew my mind that it took me so long to hear Eastman's music when I've been forced to study the American minimalists that we all have heard so much about for years and years and years, when Eastman has been doing groundbreaking work before some of them even thought about these ideas. And so that was the first big reason. I really wanted to show Eastman throughout this like whole big revival that's going on, and I wanted to do it through the context that I'm most familiar in with guitar. The other side of things, we need to go a little bit back in my upbringing in guitar and music in general. I am not a classical musician from the very as soon as I learned to walk, I wasn't like, oh yes, classical music, this is what we're doing forever. I was a metal guitarist. I played in bands with my best friends and really grungy venues and garages, and it was so much fun, and just like math rock, progressive metal, all these sorts of genres that really made me feel alive as a teenager and a young player. And then eventually I learned that I could go to school for music, and I was like, man, like who'd pass that up? Of course I'm gonna go study music. I don't want to do regular school. I want to play guitar all day long. And so like I really went into classical guitar, really the traditional approach to classical guitar, and I loved it for a long time. But unfortunately, very quickly I realized that I was being put in a box. A bunch of people telling me how I should be playing my instrument, right things that I should be doing, the things that I shouldn't even be thinking about. And I started to become very depressed in music, and I almost wanted to just stop playing guitar altogether. And then one day I said, you know what, screw this. I'm gonna go back to everything that made me feel alive about music. I'm not gonna care about the institution, what they think. If they don't like it, it doesn't really matter, because I wasn't happy in that environment anyway. And so now I'm taking all these things that really made me feel invigorated in my musical practice, and I'm trying to put that in classical music. And when I first started working with Eastman scores, it seemed like it all happened at the same perfect timing. Because while you still always want to respect the composer's intentions and ideas and wants, Eastman's style is very free, and it seemed like the perfect blank canvas to kind of start to find my new sound while experimenting with this whole new type of music that I wasn't really used to. And so with all that being said, I think what I really learned about this is that when you have a field like classical music, a field that is so overwhelmingly inaccessible to newcomers, so overwhelmingly gay-kept, overwhelmingly white, and just closed-minded in their approaches, I realized that what this does is it ends up fully limiting the possibilities of the genre and the possibilities of the players and the musicians that are part of this genre. Because when I would speak to my friends that were doing a more traditional path in classical music, when they would come across this sort of free world of music making, it was very uncomfortable for them. And a lot like what you were saying earlier, like this idea of being uncomfortable with what you're trying to do in this space. But then after a while, once they kind of pass that little obstacle, you start to see their own creative voices come out, their own ideas, their own intentions as players, and it's a really beautiful thing to see these people let go in real time and kind of find themselves. But then every time I talk to my friends who are kind of multidisciplinary artists working in different mediums, all this stuff comes a lot more naturally to them, and they're always in this state of exploration. And so that's what I feel like is really lacking from classical music, and what I really found in Eastman's music that really touched me and helped me in my own practice. So enough about all that. Let's give a brief little history of Julius Eastman. If you don't know, Julius Eastman was a gay black composer in America during a time where still today you can't openly be that, and he faced a lot of obstacles in his career because of that, and he died long before his time. Some people don't know this, but he was also an incredible performer, a vocalist and a pianist, singing on that famous recording from Matt King, Peter Maxwell Davies. He collaborated with so many people like Meredith Monk, Boulez, Henza, and he taught at the University of Buffalo till 1975. He worked along the New York downtown music scene, combining a lot of elements of classical music and pop music together, and leaving a lot of elements up to chance. And you'll see in a lot of his music, he'll have notes written in a particular register. But you're not supposed to only play that register. It's implied that you're exploring different octaves. It's the same thing with rhythms. You're meant to explore the rhythms. There are sections like in Gay Gorilla where he says this rhythm exactly the whole time. Other times where he says play this rhythm exactly once and then go somewhere else with it. All these sort of things. And so it's very free, and a lot of it was done just by direct communication with Eastman, with his collaborators and all that sort of thing. And that's why it was really hard for this revival project to happen, just because there was this long process after he had died of speaking with collaborators, trying to find all these scores that had been lost and trying to conceptualize how they did this at the time. And there's always has to be this unification of like the score and recordings and, just outside information to make the thing happen. He worked and composed in a style that he labeled as organic music, especially like evident in Gay Gorilla. And he describes it as this undulating and repetitive style that's mainly additive, with an attempt to make every new section of music contain some information of the previous section, while sometimes removing material at a gradual and logical rate. And so unfortunately he died in Buffalo, New York in a hospital in 1990, 49 years old, pretty much all alone with his music quite literally scattered to the winds. People didn't even know he died until months after it had happened. And so there's been this ongoing revival of trying to bring this amazing music back into the scene. And so I'm really happy to be a part of it. And something I think is like important to mention is that there's nothing particularly mind-blowing about what I'm doing in a sense. I think the main thing to remember here is that like Eastman really created this beautiful musical environment that showed me what I can do with what I have available to me. I think that was the most important thing about this project. And so we're gonna quickly go through the 4 different versions of Buddha, and then we'll talk about Gate Gorilla a little bit at the end too, just going through like how I approach these pieces. So Buddha, this is a score to Buddha. It's very free. It's in the form of what everyone refers to as an egg. There's 20 staves of music. Some have 1 note in them, some have multiple notes in them. All of the information you have is the word Buddha down here. Then you have his name, the word Zen, October 22nd, 1984, and then all these kind of like radiating lines. So before I really talk about my interpretations of it, I think it'd be cool just if any of you guys feel comfortable shouting out some ideas of how you would approach this score. You don't, no pressure, but if you have sort of idea.
I think it'd be fun to like in a large group just like allow anyone to start anywhere and play down and really start it at their own pace.
Definitely. Very cool. That would definitely, I think that sounded really cool, especially with like a mixed ensemble for sure. Cool. Anyone else?
I'd probably loop each line a la like in C kind of
Nice.
vibes and just kind of chill on each line and try to make a development line by line.
Nice. Yeah, I dig that.
And what the radiating, like how do you interpret?
Yeah.
Like
How would
is
you?
that just like a vibe thing, or is that like?
I love vibes.
It's always about the vibes.
How you play it.
Or is it like, you know, like
Yeah.
ringing it?
You gotta vibe it out. Yeah.
I just play whatever makes you feel whole.
Yeah, that's a good answer. I like that one. You should make an Eastman album. That's good. Heck yeah.
Andrew,
Hey man.
Definitely not my label.
Okay, cool. So let's just dive into it. So I'll start with Buddha version 1. So this was a really kind of simple one. What I did was I took each individual staff, made it into its own harmony. Obviously some are not harmonies, it's just 1 note. That's all it is. And then I made kind of like a bunch of different synth sounds, and I had, I just kind of, I didn't, instead of organizing them one after another, that they would just play one thing after another after like a certain period of time, there's no real indication of when things are happening. So I kind of like use my ear a lot in this process and try to see, oh, what sounds good coming after each other? What sounds good happening together? And, you know, creating that sort of space. The way I interpreted these lines, I viewed it more as texture. So I created a sort of sound design backing track that I also happens in like Buddha 4. And I tried to create like this sort of idea, this undulating thing of like expansion and compression within the sound design to kind of give it a sort of form and, you know, like emotional type of evolution. And so all of these things were all texture for me in a sense, and like radiations of sound, so like a lot of wet reverb and all this sort of thing. And then what I did was, so this was for electric guitar and tape, then I kind of just improvised. I spent a lot of time improvising going through each staff one at a time, just coming up with different lines. Then I came up with like some ideas that I liked, and what I did was I just improvised through it, revisit some thematic ideas. And I think this is like a really cool thing to do that, you know, maybe I could revisit, I play this all the time, but I could revisit this in like 5-10 years and try to come up with new melodic ideas and see how that evolves. I think that's something I really want to do during my time on this earth, to just see how like all these pieces evolve for me over the course of time. So that was Buddha version 1. We kind of switched the orders of some pieces on the album, so we're gonna go to Buddha version 3 first. Okay, this was a more tedious process. So I measured the egg. I don't remember how long it is. Don't ask me, I don't remember. Divided it to have sections for each minute. So I time mapped the egg. It sounds like a really cool line. And then I kind of approximated when things are happening based on that. And so everything is timed with a stopwatch. And this ended up being 20 each staff is an electric guitar. So the recording is 20 electric guitars all played with an EBow. And it sounds very menacing and terrifying, and I love it so much. It's so cool. It makes me feel terrible when I listen to it in the best way. It's great. And again, there's like the sound design texture. And so this was a really cool one because, you know, it could be any length of time. Arbitrarily, I decided 6 minutes, just like that. And with EBows, you have unlimited sustain. So you could have these crazy things of some one note sustaining for 6 minutes. And so that was Buddha version. Originally, that was the second version, but on the album, it became version 3. But now, Buddha version 2 was the same concept. Time mapped the score, condensed it to 2 minutes. And the reason why it was condensed initially is because I wanted this on classical guitar, and classical guitar has no sustain. And we, for some reason, we never want to augment the instrument in traditional classical music to get rid of that issue, but that's a separate thing. So I wanted to condense it first so that I didn't have the issue of sustain. But still, 10 seconds of sustain on a nylon string instrument, it's a lot of, a lot of time. So what I did was I plugged it through this little white pedal here, the Hologram Electronics Microcosm. It's a granular delay pedal, takes your sound, reinterprets it, puts it out at different octaves, as you know, for Eastman's thing, and different rhythms. If you know this pedal at all, I'm working a lot with the Blocks B algorithm. Love that one. Check it out if you have a pedal. And so this is just solo classical guitar. Again, kind of time mapped. When I play it live, I don't like to do this one really with a stopwatch. I kind of just like do it free and I count seconds in my head to give it more of like human quality to it. But that was it, really. And then when you listen to the album, everyone who listens to it doesn't realize it's classical guitar, and that makes me really happy because that was the kind of point of it. And now Buddha version 4, I kind of wanted to bookend the idea of the first one, but have it be on classical guitar rather than electric guitar, 2 on classical, 2 on electric. What I did was I took the same idea of all the harmonies and I put it into Ableton. I was really getting into synthesis and a bunch of other things at the time, and I was like, if I'm going to use a computer, let me, everyone likes, like Christopher was saying earlier, like a computer's job is to do everything perfectly. And I was like, let me just completely randomize it so it's unpredictable, because the computer also does that really well. So I set a bunch of different chance parameters in my project. I'm also been really into modular synthesis, as these friends are as well. And so this idea of like invisible hands turning knobs for me was like really cool. So I have a bunch of LFOs mapped to like different effect parameters and all this sort of thing. And so if I show you my Ableton project, for some reason the LFOs are not on here right now, but like for example, I have like this harmony mapped out, but then every time this harmony is triggered, which is I think every beat, there's a 50% chance, each note has a 50% chance of being played. And so every time I play this project, it kind of sounds a little bit different. And I do the same thing with like velocity parameters or arpeggiations. I have an LFO mapped to the arpeggio so that sometimes it's arpeggiating 8th notes and then randomly 16th notes and then quarter, all this sort of thing. And so it kept it really fun and alive. And then for the guitar part, what I did was I wanted to treat it more like a formal classical guitar thing. So I kind of wrote out these ideas and these parts and these structures. That was a lot more free, and it gave me a whole different sound than what I would have expected from a score that looked like the Buddha score. And so if I just play you a little bit of like this section. Originally this would sound more randomized, but the other ones are not working. But yeah, you get like this textural landscape that also has harmonic quality and all that good stuff. So I've been talking a lot. I want to get to the playing too, but we're gonna touch on Gay Gorilla. So Gay Gorilla for me was very simple. You're gonna see my messy score. I thought that'd be a cooler one to show than just a clean one. And when I first looked at this, I was like, "Wow, this score is a mess. How am I gonna do this?" But when you really start getting into it, it's not that bad. You have all these different lines with time parameters, and so you just really gotta follow it. And so I wanted to really accentuate this idea of expansion, contraction throughout it. And so the first thing was kind of picking these parameters. So I decided, okay, the first thing is I'm going to build up all the way leading to 9:45, where he writes, "The Lessing is a miracle." And I was like, that's the part where I think we need to drop and rebuild again. So the whole first section is this build, this slow build to 9 minutes and 45 seconds. And it starts off very sparse with just one guitar, one note, and then it slowly builds and builds and builds. And what I did to all the guitar tracks as I'm playing them, after I recorded the bass of it, I would take some tracks and I would put it in reverse in Ableton, half the speed, double the speed, and then mess with the transients, so you get all these different types of textures and all these different soundscapes. You would still have all the original Eastman stuff, but I want to take this creative liberty to create the sonic environment around that. And so there's this quote by Mary Jane Leach that I think really inspired this, and she says, like, these pieces have to be recognizably Eastman, but they also have to contain the performer's identity. And I thought that was a really cool idea to explore. And so the way I approached Gay Gorilla was kind of this parallel between my ideal sonic landscape of it, how I thought about it, conceptualized it, how Eastman kind of did it. And it kind of goes on, right? This, you see these things again, indicated rhythm below only, and then here rhythmically free. Melt to and back again, and then all these sort of things. And then I would decide where I wanted distortion, where I wanted to build up. Because then the next part is at 15 minutes. It was the next drop, where all the guitars suddenly disappear, and then we're back to one guitar, and we slowly build up. And then we get to the melody, Mighty Fortress Our God. Yes?
Very, very quick question. The red and black ink, are those your annotations?
Yeah, so essentially, they don't really mean anything necessarily. It just was like ways for me to kind of like visually see it in a way that made more sense, and to like kind of separate things and ideas. Not necessarily like any meaning, just my mind kind of works a little weird sometimes. I need to do weird things to the score that make sense to me. And then the last part where it drops and builds is that when you get like this whole build of the C sharp, D sharp, E, and then all ending on C sharp. And so that's kind of like was the form of the piece. And then everything that happens in between that was just me having a lot of fun with it, experimenting with sounds, you know, doing something, coming back the next day and being like, oh no, this is too dense, we need to thin it out. And this was all happening at the same time of me just learning a bunch of techniques in Ableton, learning a bunch of different like things I could do with the board I have. And so if I were to redo this now, man, I've learned so much since we put this record out that it would probably be completely different. But I think that's the beautiful thing about this music, and why I'm so stoked to be here to play it today. So before we just go to a question period, I just want to say that while we play, if you don't have an instrument and you want to be part of it, there's so many things you can do. You could use your voice, you could take the textural element from Buddha, you could, you know, different parts of your body make different sounds, the environment around you makes sound. And so if you feel up to it, just whenever, you don't have to play the whole time, but if you feel like making a sound during the performance, go for it and see how you can interact with the group. So yeah, with all this being said, does anyone have any questions about anything that we talked about? Yeah.
I'm curious about, so your record has 4 iterations of this piece, and they all sound like they're approached in creative and pretty disparate ways. Are there a lot of other recordings of this piece, and like what other kind of approaches have other artists taken?
Yeah, that's a great question. So there are some other recordings of this piece. Funnily enough, some new ones that came out were kind of like influenced by like I would like collaborators would reach out to me and then ask me about things, and we would like kind of collaborate on ideas together, and that's been really cool. But like going into this, I kind of chose like not to really listen to any recordings of it. I just really wanted to go in fresh, see what I could come up with. But the cool thing about Buddha is that even when I listen to other recordings, I have no idea how they conceptualized it, and that's what's so cool, because it creates a conversation. It creates this dynamic where even if you weren't part of the recording, if you're really interested, you know, you could reach out and you have this kind of relationship based on this music, and I think that's really cool.
Sweet.
Yeah.
Did you have a mark in the score that said "you know"?
Yeah.
What was that in reference?
I don't know. I just like that part.
Oh, nice.
I was like, you know.
You know this part.
There's like a Newfoundland expression when people say "you knows." It's like oh, that was great, and be like, yeah, you knows, like that kind of thing. Yeah.
Mighty Fortress is Our God. Was that?
Yeah.
Yeah. What's that?
Yeah, it's this chorale. I don't know all that much about it, to be honest. It's just something I learned about. Like again, like I play this piece and someone's like, hey, like organists will come to my concert and they'd be like, "Was that this?" And I'm like, "Yeah, it actually was." And they'll start talking to me about it.
Talking about that today.
Yeah, exactly. And I think it's just really cool. Like, there's so many things in Eastman's music that you see, like the avant-garde clashing with like traditionalism, whether that's traditionalism in like classical music or popular music genres and all this sort of thing. And I think that's a really cool aspect of it. Anyone else? Okay, so this is the version we're going to be playing today. It's 18 minutes long, and so just, as long as we have one person in every group, we're fine. So pick whichever group you want, and so group 4 is the one that starts it. Just again, play these notes in any register that you would like. Explore different rhythms, different conversations. Sit out if you feel like you don't want to be playing, all this sort of thing. And if you don't have pitch instruments, then just make sound how you see fit and have fun. And so I think that's the main thing of it all. So I guess I'll set up you have some?
Can you zoom in a
Yeah.
little bit more? Yeah.
I'm gonna make it like one full page and then.
Oh, okay, great.
And then at 7 minutes, I'll.
Oh yeah, deadly. Okay.
And once you're in your group, that's your group.
Yeah.
Yeah, so maybe we should assign maybe.
Choose a lane, stay in the lane.
Can you guys all see that okay? Is that okay?
Yeah, stay in your lane. The people stay on it in your
And
lane.
so stay on it down.
Yeah, you're reading downwards.
Yeah, column.
Okay.
Yeah. So if you're group 1, then you'll come in at a minute on that G, and then from 2 minutes to 3 minutes, you're playing these 2 notes, right? So you're always dropping kind of what happened before.
Are you following a clock?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
So I'm gonna try to place this in a spot where.
I like the time you see this one though. That's good.
Can everyone, if I put this here, can everyone kind of see that clearly? Even you guys, if you want to be part of it.
Is that your instrument?
When he said you can make sound, I was like, I'm gonna eat my cashews.
Do it, yeah. Do it. Eat them slow, eat them fat,
I'm gonna. Thank you.
So this is okay for everyone? Maybe I'll raise the.
At 4 minutes, you
That'll
should
be
be 4.
Yeah.
Okay, got it.
When we get to 18.
What group is that? Is that group 3?
Yeah, whichever you like.
Okay, cool. But I have to stay in that lane, right?
Stay in the lane.
Okay.
Just make sure you unmute yourself.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that you muted because of the thing. I'm gonna check me too. Do you want to assign? Do you want to assign people?
Count off.
Who wants to? Hello. Who wants to be? Do you want to start?
I don't care. Whatever you guys want. How about we do group 1, 2, 3, 4.
And you'll be 4 too.
Sure. I'll be
Maybe
4
have 2 people on start interacting with the D at least. It's a stronger opening D.
What do you say about my?
Well.
Never mind. What do you say about my opening D?
Oh,
Say I'm
PG. This is
on.
PG.
Cool.
Okay, so I guess Andrew, you're cool with starting the timer in a sec?
Sure. That might be a little loud. I'm gonna put yourself, yeah, and maybe try me too. Okay, both of those are definitely too loud. Yeah. So bring me down. I should be pretty close to you. Maybe up just up a little bit, and yeah, and up you a little bit. There you go. And Kat, can you try your pad? It's alright.
Preparing myself.
Do you have microphones?
Oh, this is already working.
Oh yeah. There should be a vocal one.
There's like the one speech mic is still plugged in.
Yeah, the speech one. Where's the speech one?
Behind the
Oh, you're playing your mic in?
Yeah. Ooh. So maybe bring both of Kat's down just by like a tad. Yeah. And now if you play holds a. Yeah. So, Manny, let's go to Cat's volume or so. So, Cat, I'm just gonna just keep hitting that thing like that. Yeah. There you go. That's better. That's probably good. And then I can play. I think so.
Cool. I'll set that timer then. Is everyone good? Everyone ready? All right. Thank you all for listening. Thank you guys for playing so much. That was great. First time I told you guys, first time I played this with like larger mixed ensemble. That's really great experience. And yeah, again, thank you Andrew, Jerry, Intersection, CMC. It's really been such a great weekend. Thanks.
Thanks, y'all. Thanks to CMC. Thanks to our funders. Thanks to Canada Council. Thanks to City of Toronto. Thanks to Long Quaid for sponsorship. Thanks to
SoCan Foundation.
SoCan Foundation. Thank you.
Yay,
Thanks.
funding.
Thanks to Justin and money. Yeah. Thanks to Justin in the back for helping us out here at the CMC. Thanks to Joseph Glazer for always being so amazing and accommodating and I don't know what else. Many things to say with Joseph. Thanks to Allison for your documentation as well.
Yeah.